I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar on live streaming. My name is Mike Epstein, and I am the founder and director of the national booking agency Epstein & Company, as well as the podcast series Speaking of the Arts. I'd like to thank all of our registered attendees today. Many of you tuned into our first webinar in May, where we discussed the future of the performing arts, and your feedback from that event was invaluable. And as a result, that really helped guide us to today's event. So we want to keep hearing from you guys. Please take advantage of our attendee survey, which will be sent to you via email in the next day or so. We are so excited for everybody to hear from our guest speakers, and I am confident you will learn a lot from them. And I'm just making sure Emmet Cohen can properly join us as he's coming online. There you are, Emmet. We're just getting started.
Thanks.
So, since the beginning of social distancing, live streaming has been the one major performance opportunity available to our artists. We can easily spend all day, every day now, tuning in to watch artists of all types. And as a result, our industry has simultaneously become flooded with live streaming and confronted with many new challenges. For example, how do you compete for people's attention with so many streams happening? How do you determine the proper price for virtual tickets when your patrons are used to viewing content for free? What type of artist fee should you offer an artist for a virtual concert? Should you use Facebook, YouTube, and/or Instagram to stream the event, or are there better platforms out there? How do you make a unique experience for your patrons when you no longer have the ambiance of your venue? And if you're an artist, how do you make a unique experience for your fans who may be watching your show on a small phone? And lastly, what will all this look like when live music can finally resume in person? These questions and many more are fundamentally changing how live music is presented and received. And we're not going to have time to address everything on today's webinar. However, our goal is to share new ideas that address some of these basic challenges. So today, you're going to hear from Laura Simpson, CEO and co-founder of SideDoor. SideDoor's platform marketplace is built to connect artists with curators, venues, service providers, and audiences to make booking, ticketing, and payments easy, fair, and transparent. Next, you will hear from Andrew Baranbom, founder and CEO of First Tube Media, a full-service live stream content platform that makes it turnkey for brands to execute innovative sponsorship opportunities and programs. Next up, you'll hear from Eric Essex, Director of Programming at the University of Alabama Birmingham's prestigious Alys Stevens Performing Arts Center. Over the years, Eric has booked everyone from Herbie Hancock and Wynton Marsalis to Pat Metheny, Diana Krall, Yo-Yo Ma, Emmylou Harris, and Oscar-winning actor Al Pacino. Next, you will hear from Nicholas Russotto, Director of Music Programming at the 92nd Street Y in New York City. And finally, you will hear from Emmet Cohen, winner of the 2019 American Pianists Awards and the Cole Porter Fellow of the American Pianists Association. I also want to thank my team member, Marie Leclerc, who is with us today to ensure things run smoothly. Thank you, Marie. And feel free to have your video going, Marie. As a reminder, we will do a Q&A at the conclusion of our event, so please submit your questions via the chat feature. I'm so grateful to all my guest speakers. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Laura Simpson and have her talk about SideDoor. Laura, take it away.
Well, thanks, Mike. Wow, I just got chills when you read who Eric has booked. That's amazing. It's great to be in such good company. I wish I could see all of your faces and the attendance, but I trust that we'll have a good Q&A after this. And I'm waving at you from Nova Scotia, Canada, which is off the map in most of people's views. But we're SideDoor is relatively small startup from Canada that we got into this because we saw a problem in the music industry that was the lack of access and sort of a lot of gatekeeping when it came to live performance. And that is across the board, no matter what kind of music that you play. And so my co-founder, who's a musician, his name is Dan Mangan, and myself, who has worked in the industry for years, we got together to create a tech platform. And we did it all in live for the first couple of years. We were doing like alternative spaces and helping people book and ticket those shows. So anything from a house to a barn, we were booking all over North America. And we probably did about 750 shows over 2 years. It was, you know, a decent operation. But since COVID hit, we switched to online shows using Zoom first and foremost, because we were communicating over Zoom all the time. So we're like, let's just try this and figure it out. And so we kind of refined. And now we've done almost 230 shows since March 21st. So the number of shows has spiked quite a bit. We've more than tripled the revenue for artists. And we've increased our attendance like something crazy like 4,000%. So it's been a bit of a game changer. We're one of the fortunate few who have managed to figure out how to navigate this time. But I just want to preface what I say next with that, you know, it's a tender time. And I know a lot of artists are still struggling with like, how do I adapt? And I don't want to innovate. I just want to cope at this time. And I get that. I talk to artists all the time about those feelings. And you know, this is here for when you're ready. So I'll just share my screen and just get into this a little bit. Try to cut me off, please, Mike, if I go over time. So
you're doing great, but I'll do that.
Thanks. So our theory when we started was that the internet is oversaturated with broadcasters. So we actually dug into the interactive model. We use the meeting format of Zoom so that you can actually see the audience while you're playing, and they can see each other, more importantly. My co-founder always says it's sort of like blind casting when you're playing to everyone on the internet all at once. It's sort of like playing in an airport and hoping for a donation. And so we really focused on getting people's audiences together to make it interactive so you can peer into each other's lives a little bit. And we've really worked a lot with our hosts who are our in-person hosts who have switched to moderating Zoom shows and helping people, you know, have Q&As and engagement and moderate the chat and that sort of thing. So that's been a lot of fun to watch take place, and fans coming in from all over the world. We also have really worked hard in the last little while to ensure that we have security, because it was a big thing, I know, for people to feel like when they're in this space to feel like they're safe. And so we have now done this so the registration happens in the background. You can link in your own Zoom account automatically through Sidedoor. And we're actually looking at now doing a further integration with them coming down the line too. So it's getting even better as we go along in these weeks. We do, like I said, booking and ticketing. So we kind of guide through the things that you need to know for the show, but then we also help by paying performance royalties out. Taxes are sort of split out. We can collect emails from the people who come to your show. You can manage comps. So if you want to invite people to the show that you don't want to pay, you can manage that. And we can definitely do free events. And some people do that and they just throw up a donation link, and that's totally cool. We work like a marketplace in that way. So we're working towards rebuilding our marketplace in that sense, where we can connect people with, you know, promoters, presenters, artists with service providers. So right now we have a program going to help people develop the skills to moderate these shows. And really we're looking for the low overhead, high ROI kinds of shows where it's not just return on investment, but a return on engagement, like you feel like you're really engaging with your audience. And the money is actually split automatically according to the contract that you create through our platform, and the money is dispersed automatically after the show, no invoicing or anything like that. So there's a bunch of quotes. I'm just gonna load in the link here, which is this one on our platform. Really all you need to know is we just take 10% of the ticket revenue at this time, so we only earn if you earn cash. And on this link that I'm about to share, There's a free PDF that you can download on our site that basically is a 13-page guide of how to make stuff look and sound good on Zoom. So even if you don't do it with us, we're just giving a little freebie away so that yeah, you can get a little sense of how to do it in this format. And I'm happy to talk about this after we get to the Q&A.
Thanks so much, Laura. I'm sure that people are going to have a lot of good questions for you when we get to that. So I'd like to turn it over to Andrew now and have him talk about First Tube Media and what his experience has been during this time. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'll wave as well out to the ether of nobody that I can see. Real quick background. I've been in digital marketing and building startups for almost 20 years. I started really early at Yahoo in their commerce division. And since then, I've been building startups that kind of look for business opportunities where brands and agencies are basically looking for a build versus buy scenario, and kind of creating platforms that allow for brands and agencies to be able to execute programming, kind of marketing executions and applications that they'd never be able to build on their own. And I got into music in a pretty random way. Within the digital marketing kind of matrix, my background really has always been focused on ROI and knowing how to acquire customers online. I got this kind of dream gig phone call from a friend of mine saying, "Hey, do you want to run marketing for all the Grateful Dead Fare Thee Well tour? It's the 50th anniversary. It's the last shows ever. My favorite music with my favorite guitarist in the world, Trey Anastasio." And I, of course, dropped what I was doing, which at the time I was consulting for a VC firm, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And next thing you know, I was in the music industry in a pretty cool way. And, you know, it ended up being the largest music pay-per-view ever. We drove over $14 million in sales for that event. And it threw me into music, and I started asking a lot of questions as a digital marketer, trying to understand the ecosystem. And there were a few things that, you know, I decided to kind of dig into. And one was, you know, brands and their sponsorship dollars that they were investing at music events. There was a really lack understanding of our ROI. Artists, you know, were seeing their revenue from recorded assets, you know, and, you know, because of streaming platforms exploding, and, you know, that's only grown, you know, the Spotify's of the world. And so they had to tour more often than ever, you know, to make up for that revenue. And the other component to that I saw as a business opportunity was that digital video was kind of the largest growth in digital marketing by far. Brands are investing heavier in video and content. And so as I saw this branded video industry growing significantly, I thought, hey, there's got to be a way to bring this as a new revenue stream to artists. And kind of the idea of connecting the dots between artists into a new revenue stream and supporting them was kind of the motivation behind the business. And that's grown. You know, we were, you know, like most startups that I've created in my life, I'm a little early to the market. And this one, a good old pandemic has accelerated our opportunity significantly. You know, we've produced over 1,000 live streams in the last 4 years. Everything that we do is kind of the opposite of kind of the side door solution, you know, in a different way. We're premium. Obviously our stuff is, you know, being received by, you know, for brands and for consumers. So most of our stuff is multi-camera. You know, one of our recent shoots we just did in the middle of Desert Valley with drones and 8-camera shoot. What we're really good at is our background in digital marketing is we basically see this new opportunity around live media. It's very hard to gain audience attention. And so we come in full service to brands in executing these really scalable new sponsorship format. And the goal here is to, you know, not only drive, you know, massive engagement, but really to show clear results on their sponsorship investment. And so we've been successful in doing that. We worked with brands like MasterCard. We just had an episode with Camila Cabello just yesterday for MasterCard. You can check it out on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Clients like Grubhub, Tito's Vodka, Synchrony, and so on. And, you know, one of the things that Eric and I were talking about is kind of in understanding the audience is kind of what are the best practices, you know, whether you're a creator on your own or a brand, or you're a IP owner and you own your own venues or what have you. And, you know, what we do is, and we want people to understand is, you know, that competition for attention is greater than ever. And so, and that's become even more challenging, with more people doing live streaming than ever before. And so how do you stand out? And so, whether you're marketing your side door pay-per-view or another type of, live content event, everyone should be able to understand that the kind of the marketing framework of how to set yourself up for success to maximize what you're trying to achieve. And so we put everything in this framework of a pre-live, post framework. And so pre-event, think of it as that you're going to be marketing a TV show, right? So just like NBC runs commercials before you're actually going to watch the show at 8 p.m., we take a similar approach in designing a way to drive awareness, drive data collection, get people to set the reminders so that they can get notifications automatically when you're about to go live, and then drive as much what we refer to as tune-in moment. That tune-in, how do you maximize that for what you're trying to do? And then after that, how do you continue the story through shoulder content and other types of content formats to keep that conversation going until your next episode? If you start going into an always on framework and keep doing it and setting an expectation, you will see your engagement and you will see your viewership grow. And as you continue to invest in that, that allows it to open you up for different business opportunities, whether you're looking to create your own IP or just grow your audience, capture emails and build your databases. There's a variety of different techniques to that. And so, what we view kind of in this new digital live experience format, we got into the business because we're massive music fans and we love live events. We believe that every single person that is investing in a live event should have a live media extension to it. I think Laura naturally has seen this opportunity come to her business. Why show 100 people when you can show 1,000 people? We now are seeing that kind of help the overall industry, all of us collectively, as a business, continue to grow. And what's cool about what's happened because of the pandemic is everything that we do now has a social impact component to it. Just in the last 2 months, we've generated over $2 million for St. Jude Children's Hospital, over 50,000 meals for frontline healthcare workers, and continue to drive impact because obviously, social impact is a big initiative for everyone. And I think hopefully that'll continue even when we get out of this mess. I'll look forward to a Q&A. Maybe you guys will have some questions for me.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Can I just ask you a really quick follow-up question? Is
Please.
there any sort of visual roadmap of the process you described for thinking about, I have one live event coming up, live stream coming up, and I can visualize those steps that you were describing along the way for marketing it? Do you have anything like that we could maybe put in the after show notes or direct people to?
Yeah, I can drum something up. I have some stuff, but Eric, I'll send it to you. Maybe you can send it as a follow-up.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right.
It'd help if I unmuted myself. I'd like to turn things over to Eric Essex and have you talk about how you guys are doing at the Alys Stephens Performing Arts Center. Take it away, Eric, and there you go.
Thanks a lot, Mike, and thanks for having me be a part of this illustrious panel. I was just listening to what Andrew and Laura are doing, and my first thought was I need to get in touch with you guys to help us out over here at the Alys Stephens Center. It's been a real challenging time, as I'm sure all of you know and understand. It's been the same for us here at the center. We've just been trying to pivot from, of course, our live performances and classes and the things that we do here normally to a virtual and a digital format. And having to do that on the fly, and not really knowing exactly how to do it, no plan, no strategy, has been a challenge for us. But I think we've risen to the challenge as best we possibly can. We're a university presenter. We're a performing arts center on the campus of the University of Alabama Birmingham. And so we have the university as our backdrop and as part of our support. But generally, we operate on selling tickets to shows. Some of the artists that Mike mentioned are just a few of the many artists that we present over the course of our season, which generally we do anywhere from about 30 or 25 to about 30 shows a year with featured artists, and then there are just tons of other educational things that we do as well. There are 4 divisions to the Alys Stephens Center. There's the Performing Arts Center, We also have a very, very thriving, active art gallery, visual arts gallery that's right across the street from the center. We also have an arts and medicine program that is fantastic, as University of Alabama also has a medical facility, huge medical facility, I should say, that is part of the University of Alabama Birmingham. It's a teaching university for medicine as well as several hospitals. And so we have an arts and medicine program that goes along with everything else that we do. And also our teaching, our educational wing, Art Play, has classes that we teach every semester as well. So we have several different components that are a part of the Alys Stephens Center. What we've managed to do in this time of COVID is to shift somewhat to almost a completely virtual format. We don't have the same kind of numbers that Laura has, but as a small performing arts center, we've done, I think, remarkably well in the situation that we're in. We've had about 41 virtual events since March, with over 1,500 devices engaged, and some of those devices have more than one person watching. So roughly about 2,000 to 2,500 people engaged since March. We also have moved all of our summer drama camps to virtual. We have several presentations by our arts gallery called AVA. It's an acronym for Abrams Engel Institute for Visual Arts. And it has actually been the most active part of our virtual offerings. And just a couple of the events that we do, one is called Outside the Lines. It's a coloring night. It's a combination of audiences printing out a piece of art, and they color while they listen to and ask questions of a noted featured artist. And we've had Amanda Brower and Stephen Evans. We also have a program called Inside the Arts. It's interviews with national artists who show and discuss selected works in real time in a Zoom format. And we've had Thaddeus Mosley, Michael Ray, Bob Bondi, Rebecca Morris in that series. And we have a salon series where we visit the private art collections and galleries of local and regional art lovers via Zoom. All of this stuff is via the Zoom format. And they all begin with like an informal meet and greet and cocktail time prior to the event, which actually winds up being really pretty cool. And since we aren't able to go into our hospitals with our artists at this time, and we can't meet with students, we have continued to engage our community with virtual programs like Mental Health Mondays and other videos, which are on our website, and they're all on demand so that you can go at any time and check out any of the programs that we do. We usually record and have them on the website available for viewing at your leisure. We are also at the Alys Stephens Center, where I do the programming. We're trying to move to a totally live streaming performances for the fall, with the hopes that, sometime in the winter, late spring, we'll be able to open up the facility for people to come into our halls again. But we've had some performances already. We had Shalea Frazier from the Lifetime movie, The Clark Sisters, First Ladies of Gospel. We did a virtual concert last week, and also a Q&A afterwards, and it was in a Zoom webinar format. We had a really, really good attendance, and the performance was amazing. This was the first time that we had an artist where we actually paid the artist to do a performance. Everything that we've done prior to has been pretty much artists donating their time. But that was an experiment so that we can move forward with ticketed performances later on in the spring. We are also going to move to a drive-in format, outdoor drive-in format, starting actually this month, July the 30th, where we're going to project a concert onto a huge screen on campus, and people will be able to drive in for those performances. And actually the first one that we done sold out in less than an hour. So, we're really excited about that. And hopefully that's a format that we can continue with moving forward into the future. But I think that we're just like every other performing arts center that's out there right now. We're just trying to figure this out as we go, and we're just kind of chugging along. Hopefully I can get some ideas from some of the panelists on how we can make our season and the things that we present a little bit better as we go forward.
Great, thanks a lot, Eric. Nick, let's hear how everything's going at the 92Y. I know you guys have had a fair amount of experience doing live streaming since March.
Well, the world is quickly falling apart, so we're doing our best to provide a soundtrack to it. No, I'm just kidding. It's been a really interesting few months for us. I mean, basically overnight, and as you all know, the pandemic hit New York on the very early side. So, I mean, over the course of a week in March, we transitioned from as normal, which for the 92nd Street Y is concerts, classes of all sorts. You can take a pottery class, you can take a language class, a jewelry making class, you can take swimming lessons, you can go to the gym there. We have a renowned poetry center which presents readings by poets and novelists. All of that immediately moved online. So we became a digital media company basically overnight. At the beginning for us, it was on the easier side. Our concert hall is set up to live stream things natively. So the first few performances, when we were still allowed to be out of our homes, flowed as normal, except without any audience in our hall. Things became a little bit more challenging in what we've since termed the week of changing expectations. There was a day where we could go out of our house to film a performer at his house in Philadelphia. And then the next day we weren't allowed to do that anymore. So he had to record his performance on his iPhone and send it to us by Dropbox. And that, in short, has been our method of presenting for the last 4 months. We experimented a little bit with the Real Deal Live format and found that the technology was a little too unreliable, both using residential Wi-Fi streams and also using Zoom format. We found difficult for presenting music because it compresses audio so much. So we elected to have people film their performances. They send them to me by Dropbox. We broadcast them. We have been paying all of our artists' fees. I'm embarrassed to say, hasn't been much, but it's been something. I think that the really interesting questions are going to be those of sustainability. As the country starts to open up again, as our donors become comfortable with giving money again, as our budgets begin to recover, what will the resulting landscape look like? For us, we're thinking about presenting live streams into the fall. We're hoping we can do that from our hall again. We're thinking that it may be the business model that has historically been ours, which is a sort of flat fee engagement, may be disappearing for a lot of artists, moving to something more like a back-end deal where we have a guarantee plus a percentage of revenue, because this is uncharted territory. We're not going to have an audience in our hall. Our subscribers, like everybody else in classical music, are largely older. Many have expressed concerns with being out among large groups of people, and of course that's something that everybody's going to be dealing with around the country. At the same time, artists need to make a living. We need to make sure that our artists are being supported, our managements are being supported, and the financial model to do that is going to be a topic of some conversation. For us, we're also a union house, so having conversations at the top levels of our institution with how the stagehands unions agreements have been in the past and how they will be going forward has been another interesting topic of conversation. Thankfully, I think there's goodwill on all sides there. It's a strange time. We are experimenting with this in real time. Every concert we do something different. We've thankfully had some great successes. Jonathan Biss's performance of the last 3 Beethoven sonatas at the end of March saw almost 280,000 people view it live. 280,000, you know, these are numbers we don't see in classical music very often. Several other streams have done almost that well. These were free. We've now moved into a ticketed streaming situation for all of our live streams. We're charging a $10 ticket price, and that's been helpful in sort of defraying our costs, but, you know, we see less numbers. And so another question for us is, how do we market these effectively? To Laura and Andrew's points, the landscape is incredibly crowded. Differentiating our stream with one performer for somebody else's stream by another performer, or sometimes by the same performer, is a challenge, and it's something we're going to have to think about as an industry going forward. If I'm hiring Emmet to do something this week and somebody else is hiring him to do something next week, how do we make those different? How do we make each seem special? But there seems to be a lot of goodwill between wonderful managers, not so great presenters, and fantastic musicians in crafting a new normal. So I'm really pleased that we can come together as an industry and craft this together. Thanks so much for having me, Mike. It's been really nice to be here.
No, thank you, Nick. I really appreciate it. So before we do our Q&A, we're going to have Emmet Cohen talk about what his experience as an artist has been like during this whole time. And Emmet, I'll let you take the reins, but it has been really, really encouraging personally just to see the success you've had doing live streaming. So I hope you can talk a little bit about what your experience has been like that, and just go from there. Take it away.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike, and thanks everyone for speaking. I guess I'm coming from a little bit of a different angle. I don't have an organization. I don't even have an LLC. I just have a piano and some good friends in Harlem. And I guess when everything started getting canceled, we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And as more and more things got canceled, we're like, okay, this is something we have to do. So the first stream I saw was by anybody online was Sullivan Fortner and Cecile McLaurin-Salvant. And they just did a laptop setup kind of like this, and Sullivan was playing piano and Cecile was singing, and it was amazing. And what it did for people, it just made them feel so good. They were kind of writing requests. I could see there was a sense of community, and the way that they interacted with the camera, with the audience, with each other, people just felt uplifted by it. And I said, you know, how can we simulate that in a way and uplift people? So the first opportunity we had was I was supposed to play at the Lead Center in Lawrence, Kansas, and Derek Kwan said, hey man, why don't you just, you know, we'll pay for the concert, and you just do a live stream, and you just do it on your Facebook, and you know, it'll be something good for the world. Like, we need this right now. And so we ended up doing it. We set up like one phone with the Lead Center's live stream on it, and then a computer with my Facebook, and then we did another phone with my Instagram, just kind of checking out, you know, we had every device going and like every different angle. And I think people really connected with it. It got a lot of shares, a lot of views. People thanked us. I have somewhat of a built-in audience that I've been collecting emails after the gigs for the last 7 years everywhere in the world. And so I know those people were tuned in, and those people were very grateful that we did this. And then it was successful on that Monday. We decided, why don't we try this again next Monday, or kind of make it a weekly thing for the time being. So we started doing it every Monday, and each Monday, like Nick kind of said, we made a little bit of an adjustment. You know, the sound is terrible on the laptop. The video is terrible on the laptop. And so hours of staying up all night researching YouTube clips, how to do this from home. I think the most important thing for musicians is sound. And this is all kind of coming from like the home streaming angle. And so I bought a couple of microphones, one on the piano here, and a couple of other ones, one on top of the drums and one for the bass, and bought this mixer here, like a $200 Behringer mixer, stereo output. The mics go into there, that goes straight into the computer, and we can use that sound. And I learned about I'm going to get a little technical here because I think this is what this is the most important part, is the open broadcast software. It's called OBS, and that is a program for Mac or Windows, and that allows you to filter audio and video, text, anything else you'd like into this. It's a pretty complex program, but if you kind of get the hang of it and do a little bit of trial and error, you can kind of get it to work for your scenario. And so they have an app too for that for that program on the iPhone. It's called OBS Camera. And so all you do is download that app. It's like $20 or something, and it has a pretty good video. It's not 4K, but that combined with the audio, you can filter into this thing, this program, and then take that stream key out. I know it's a little technical for a lot of people in here, but if you take the stream key, you can put that right into Facebook, or you can put that right into YouTube, or in my case, I use a multicast software called caster.io, and that's I can, it's, I think restream.io. There's different ones you can use, but you can put the stream key into that, and then from there you can filter it out to a bunch of different places. So I go to YouTube and I go to Facebook. Unfortunately, Instagram is not able to handle any of that stuff. It has its own API keys, and you need to actually set up a phone to use Instagram, which I don't think is really actually set up for live streaming, because they only let you stream an hour. All the other programs you can go to from a Restream multi-stream software include Twitch or LinkedIn. There are a few other ones too, but I just use YouTube and Facebook. And then on the Facebook end of things, there is a technology they have built into their software called cross-posting, and I found that to be the most useful marketing tool. That means that I can put my stream into my Facebook, but also link it out to other people's Facebook. So I know a few people are in here. Howard Stone is here from Vail Jazz. So when I do mine, we're in a cross-posting relationship on Facebook, which means that when I go live, it can go straight to his page too, as if he's doing that. I know Ryan Patternight's in here too, and I do that with Birdland Jazz Club as well. And it's kind of mutually beneficial because it creates content for their viewers, and so it doesn't come from my page, different from a share. It actually comes from their page, so there's a little more firepower behind it as far as the algorithms are concerned. A share, you might get a couple likes or whatever, but if you go live from the page, the followers get notified, and the comments and the likes don't add up between all the pages. They're unique to the page, but the viewers, like how many viewers at one time are watching, they all add up. So you can see at the top of the thing when it's live, how many viewers you have, and then the views all at the end, they all add up from all the different pages. So I have a bunch of different cross-posting partners that are kind of on board each week. Some are bigger than others, and some I actually pay a fee to use, and some are just grateful to have some content on their page. Some want to support us, and so I'm constantly looking for those partnerships, and that to me has been successful. My model has been to keep the whole thing free, because I think it's also an investment period for us and for me. If I just kept it to my audience, it might not be able to grow. And all the shares and the likes and people telling their friends, and even if people just tune in for one song and they like what they hear, and they might go to my Facebook page and press like and come back another time. So my model has actually been to use kind of a Patreon type of thing. I thought that platform to be a little bit kitschy for me, and for who my people were, who are mostly older performing arts customers, I would say, patrons, and those people, for them, I created this thing on my website, and just an exclusive membership thing. So kind of like a Kickstarter or Patreon model, where I said anyone who signs up gets a vinyl record that are going to be ready next week of one of my albums. So we printed that. There's also a membership portal on my website of all the streams that I've done so far, all the free ones, and then also I do private ones for these people using a YouTube unlisted link. During the week, sometimes I'll do that and send them out to the subscribers. So it's like this private concert just for them. So for members supporting everything on Mondays and everything else that I'm doing, I'll give kind of like an interactive thing and really respond to the questions and take some requests and stuff like that, and develop that personal relationship with those people. And I have 3 membership tiers for that. There's a $150 level, a $500 level, and a $1,000 level. And I really actually had this idea before all of the pandemic and everything hit, that this is kind of the trend of the world. Everything's going to subscription, and that you can get a subscription candle box sent to your house, or you can get a vinyl of the week or vinyl of the month, or you can get, clothes sent from a certain website. They know your sizes, and you just get a subscription box every month, and you can put the things on. If they fit, you keep them. If not, you send them back and they send you some other stuff. And I think that that's a good way to keep people engaged. I had a fear that if I did a monthly one, that it would give people more of a chance to cancel the membership, especially after the pandemic's done. But if it's a one-time thing, then that's where my mind is, and that's how we've been surviving in this time, and making the concerts on Monday nights free to everyone. Now we're starting to have guests and stuff come in, and kind of making it a different variety show each week, and people are telling their friends and they're liking it. So that's what I'm up to.
Thank you so much, Emmett. So if we were all together, this would be a time where I would ask everybody watching to give a big round of applause for all of our guest speakers. So you're gonna just have to do that virtually and send your good vibes. We're starting to get some great questions here. So I'm gonna go ahead and, thank you, Will. I'm gonna go ahead and read some of these questions to the panel, and I'll let you guys as a panel, as a whole, just whoever wants to take one of the questions, or we can spend a minute or two on each question if it needs more than one person to answer. And the last thing I'll say is anybody who's here as an attendee and you have a question, do not hesitate to go ahead and post it, because we want to take advantage of the great expertise this panel has to offer. Okay, so Will Ramsey had a question for Eric when Eric was speaking. He asks, have you found live streaming to be an effective adjunct for your virtual education programming, or do you mainly stick with registration only / student restricted events?
Yeah, we found it to be very, very beneficial for us moving forward. We have some events that have been restricted more or less to our members, and those have been, Mike, the Q&A that we did with Delphia was one of those. It wasn't open to the public, it was just for our members, and they had to register, and then we had to send them the Zoom link and those kinds of things. I like those things as perks for our members, but generally in this time, I think that it's really important for us to try to be as, to remain relevant and just to keep content flowing out to the community. And so that's what we try to do more so than anything. Even with our educational things, those are the things that people have to pay for and have to register for. But everything else we've tried to make within the confines of Zoom, where we can only have 300 people. We've tried to make as many of those open to the public as possible. Now, we did start doing the Shalea Frazier event. We did do a webinar through the university, who has one, the big format where we could have up to 5,000 people. So we do have that possibility for some of our larger events, but we want to try to make as many things free. And moving forward in the future, we will start to do more ticketed events.
Great. So the next question, this is for the whole panel. Peter Stevenson asks, can someone speak to solutions for musicians playing together virtually from separate locations? I know latency has made this virtually impossible, but I've just learned about software called Jack Trip developed by musician Dan Tepper. Is anyone on the panel aware of this solution? And I'll let the panel answer that. But as a side note, Marie Leclerc this morning sent me a link to a NPR story. Was that a new story, Marie? You're muted.
Yeah, it was part of the Jazz Night in America series on NPR.
Yeah, and it was specifically about this software that Peter's asking about. So does anybody have any experience with that? Because I only just learned of this software this morning.
I mean, what I could say, from our side, we have remote production systems. We ship them all over the country as we're trying to capture, artists, remotely. And the only way that we were able to get live to work is, we would create the monitor through an AirPod, and we would then have a singer with a musician. It was very difficult to have two musicians playing at the same time, especially strings. And so we have tried some software, and I'm definitely going to try Jack Trip here next because we've been trying to solve this. But most of the stuff that we've had to do where if an artist is going to be playing on strings, they can just kind of play without listening, and then the singer has to go, along with that music. But anything that we've been doing in a collaborative standpoint has been taped to live where we can post-produce it.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I've heard of too. I know Dan personally, and I've seen he's done some stuff with other musicians, and it seems like it's pretty good. But there's something about playing live music with somebody in person that I don't think can actually be replicated digitally. And I think as good as the technology gets, it's always going to be more of a novelty than like an actual experience playing with somebody live. But it might be cool. The only thing is, I don't know if you can do it with more than two people. And once there's like bass and drums together, like the timings have to be like so exact. Even if you're too far away from if the bass player is too far away from the drummer on stage, then the hookup can be off. And so that's a tough thing. But I've seen Dan do it, and I would like to try it, but I haven't ventured into it yet.
Yeah, we'll post the video from NPR that talks about that technology. Maria, if you got a second, and you can just put that link in there. I think people would really like to check that out. Okay, moving on. Catherine Kolbrove asks, since it's such a crowded digital landscape, I'd love to hear thoughts about collaborations among presenters for a stream/exclusive broadcast to create a virtual tour with geographic audience boundaries, or to amplify a single ticketed event where each presenter receives a portion of ticket sales based on the link the audience member uses to access the event. So that's a really interesting idea. Panelists, do you have any thoughts on that?
We're in the process, it's in our development queue to do geogating for shows. So essentially that looks like, like if you're in Canada and you try to watch Saturday Night Live, they're like, nope, you can't watch that here because NBC doesn't want to allow that to happen. So it essentially blocks people who are not in the chosen show creators market from seeing a show. So you can then virtually tour your show. We actually had early talks with a ballet company who wanted to go across Canada, like province by province, and do an interactive presentation of their dance show, with sort of like a color commentary by the producers with the local ballet community, and they were going to geogate it along the way. So, that's when we started looking at how to do that, and it's actually not terribly hard. So yeah, it's part of our plan to do, so that I think everybody's at the point where they're like, oh, now everybody can see everything all the time. How do we prevent exhaustion, right? So yeah, and we can also fold in promoters for each specific market so that they can take a cut for those particular shows.
Alrighty. Roxanne, I'm at the risk of mispronouncing your last name, I'm just going to leave it to your first name. So Roxanne asks, what is the audience feedback to paid events? This is a huge topic, and just from hearing our guest speakers today, there's a wide range of thoughts on paid versus not paid. I know everybody here has some thoughts on that, so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say and what your experience has been doing paid ticketed events virtually.
I'll say that the audience response for the 92nd Street Y has been largely very positive. The feedback that we've got that has been less so has been a bit more related to the sort of infrastructure to buy tickets. Obviously, it's an imperfect solution for us because our ticketing software and processes are much more geared towards you're presenting a ticket to an usher. So that's been something that our marketing team has done a really good job addressing with little sort of modifications, but it's been a challenge. And so too, people have such a high bar when it comes to spending $10 these days. I mean, you spend $10 and you get a Netflix subscription, and most presenters that I'm aware of just don't have the infrastructure available to make anything that looks even remotely as good as that. So that's been setting expectations has been another challenge for us. But as far as the streams itself, the audience has been really responsive in a positive way, and forgiving of the occasional technical fumbles that have happened along the way. So, but generally a really positive thing, I think.
Does anybody else want to speak about the topic at large of how to charge ticket prices for virtual streaming events?
Yeah, I have one comment. I know that, Mike, you and I talked about this earlier, where we're considering the subscription model and not quite sure how to move forward on it. So we actually did a survey, and we have about 77,000 people on our email list, and we had about a 10% open, or 10% of that open rate. Out of that, I think like maybe 800 or so people responded. And one of the questions was, would you pay a nominal fee to experience virtual events and have access to on-demand content? And we had almost 400 people say no, and about an equal number, about 350 people said yes, 19 people did not answer. The main reasons that they gave were due to financial obligations, and it would depend on who the actual artists or speakers were. And the one response that was kind of interesting was virtual fatigue. So, you know, just people, I think, getting tired of watching performances and events on screen. So we are, you know, actively trying to move forward with more paid virtual content, and I'm really kind of excited about the possibility of doing a subscription based series or subscription based model if our public is willing to, you know, pay for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say to all this, and you're seeing that in your survey, and it's always great to get data, you know, from your audience. You know, you're when you're talking about paid content, you're not competing against other people that are doing what you're doing. You're competing against Netflix subscriptions. You're competing against Hulu subscriptions. You're competing against any sort of paid content. The level of requirements for someone to pay for a premium type of content experience, right, which we all have a few of those investments that we make on a monthly basis, the bar is very high, right? If you think of what pay-per-view was before the pandemic happened, right, the only pay-per-view that worked was boxing, UFC, right? It was these one-off, very unique things that worked in that environment. Pay-per-view is working right now because none of us can go have that experience live. I think that pay-per-view still has a model for performance-based content, but it needs to be more than that. And so when you're thinking about structuring your run of shows and driving value, you have to come up with something unique, whether that's providing a unique Q&A environment. We've done a bunch of pay-per-views for films where the talent is providing a Q&A or watching together type of experience, things that they wouldn't get in a live experience and are worth paying. Another game mechanic, lever, call whatever you want, incentive, is to tie yourselves with some sort of social impact that everyone knows, you know, is going to not only your business, but also to a cause that everyone cares about. But realize you're competing against Netflix for someone to pay for something that you're going to produce.
Yeah, that's great. And Andrew, that's a really good segue because I've got a couple questions which all kind of go under this category of how do you compete for attention and what do you do to differentiate your stream and everything like that. And thanks for that feedback on that. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that topic as far as using this new medium not as a replacement for a concert stage, but instead using it as something entirely new? And what might have you seen works for that? So again, it's not to replicate a live concert as we know it, but instead offer an experience that caters to this digital format. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to just extend on what I was saying, you know, that's exactly what fans want, right? You know, what this world, what digital has provided is a new format of access to people that they are fans of, right? That they look up to, that they want to understand more about, right? In the world of social media, we're suddenly gaining more access to talent than we ever have in our entire lives. Some people say that we're achieving too much access. When you start thinking about, again, to paid environments, you know, I want to see Emmet play, but I also want to see Emmet tell a story about why, you know, about behind the song, maybe in a unique way, and provide a unique opportunity and vision, you know, that I wouldn't gain in going and paying a ticket and watching him in a concert hall. And so, you know, how does talent rethink how do they provide exclusive access to them and who they are? It has to be part of the equation, right? And so that's kind of a lot of what we think about. You know, from our programming, we view access as an incentive for brands. And so while we're doing these one-to-many broadcasts of performances where we engage millions of people, we're then using those exclusive experiences to have a meet and greet with an artist. We're working on a program with Grubhub coming up where you're going to get to have a meet and greet. We use that as an incentive. They drive email capture out of that as, you know, part of a sweepstakes promotion. And so the access piece, I think, is a key driver to people wanting to pay money.
Yeah. Anybody else before we move on to another question?
I just want to say I agree with Andrew 100%. The Delphio Marsalis Q&A that we did a few weeks ago with your artist, Mike, was the feedback that we got the next day was just glowing. And it was all about having an opportunity to ask him questions. Now, it also had to do a lot with the fact that he is a brilliant historian and so knowledgeable about the music and such an incredible personality that can't overlook that. But the fact that you got to ask Delphio Marsalis a question and he responds was definitely a selling point. It was to date our biggest virtual event.
Yeah, I could give one example. In comedy, I know this comedian, Bert Kreischer, who's a pretty crazy guy. You guys check him out. But he runs these pay-per-view Zoom bomb experiences. You know, he kind of played off the Zoom bomb thing where you're paying and you have an opportunity where he actually selects your tile and then you get a one-on-one with him for a few seconds. And you're getting also this moment where you're being highlighted in front of the other 500 people, right? And people are paying just to have the opportunity to get that one-on-one with him just for a split second where he's probably making fun of you in front of 500 people, you know? So, you know, sometimes that's what people pay for, to be made fun of, right?
Yeah, we call it one artist that we did that with, and they likened it to having all of their front row fans all at the same time looking back at them. It's great.
That's a great analogy. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Eric, was the Delphio thing just for your subscribers or just for your members, or who actually got to see that?
It was predominantly for our members and subscribers. We ended up at the last minute because people were RSVPing to it, and we had some slots left. And so I went on. Well, we all went on social media, and I went on my personal social media, and opened it up to members of the public. And you know, we got a substantial number of people from just the general public who also joined in as well. But it started off as a member event. That's
cool. Yeah, I've done a couple of those things. I did one yesterday for Stanford Live, just for maybe 10, 15 people. And I also did one for Jazz Lincoln Center a couple of weeks ago. and just engaging that audience. I think people feel very special. And like Andrew said, you know, you're like in my living room and here's the piano and we're, you know, I'm playing and talking and just answering questions. And it's something that people wouldn't usually get. And since it's in my home, it feels even more personal.
All right, well, let's just take the time to do just 2 more questions here, because I want to be really, I'm very conscious of all of our guest speakers' time today. There's a couple of questions about digital rights, copyright issues, clearing rights. I'm going to lump that all together. So the question kind of becomes, given live streaming, how do people think about licensing and royalties and rights for performing artists?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to that on a couple of fronts. You know, one, don't cover dead guys or girls, because those are the people that actually care about coming after you. And so, but you know, in all seriousness, you know, we do lots of clearancing for brand usage all the time, and I think, you know, the live framework, most of the platforms are set up with their kind of contracts with the labels, and so you won't have an issue on live. It's really once you get to the recorded format, and you want to keep content up, that you need to address that. And obviously, if you own your own music and your own publisher, you're in the clear as a talent. But if you are a venue or a partner or promoter and you want to use that content for further, there's the labels didn't really have many rules over the last few years around licensing, and it was kind of the Wild West. I've had experiences where we've had labels ask for $5,000 each side for every song, and we come back and they asked for $50,000, $60,000 for a show that we had, and we said, oh well, we have $5,000, and they said, great, we'll take it. And so they kind of were just kind of looking at it as found money. I think with what's going on, you know, all the platforms have matured with their licenses. YouTube was kind of the leader in that. They'd already had these deals in place. Facebook just got them. Twitch doesn't have them, and you know, with all the DJs, you know, that flooded Twitch, you know, with what happened with the pandemic, are now being shut down on anything that's recorded. And so you're starting to see the whole market evolve. You know, and so, you know, it's kind of it's still a gray area out there in a lot of ways, and it's just kind of, you know, if you want to be safe about it and not, you know, pay. YouTube's a pretty good platform to be safe on, because there's rules there. They notify the publisher owners automatically through their content ID systems, and they can claim it. And when they claim it, all that's happening is that the publisher is saying, hey, I want to monetize this content, and so that they get the revenue share on the ads that are going to show up on their content. And so that's basically what happens on YouTube. The other platforms, you know, if you really want to have private usage of that content, you got to pay and work with, you know, go through the wonderful world of publishing clearancing.
Yeah, I've had some interesting adventures in this land, working in multiple markets, Canada, US, Europe, and UK, which all have different rates. And it's a, you know, broadcast license for online. And, you know, Andrew's right. Yeah, if you play cover music, it's a different game. But even in Canada anyway, the body that manages performance royalties would have the artist who's only playing their own original music submit and pay as well. And it's kind of lunacy, but also we're trying to keep everything above board and ensure that the right rules are followed. So we're in the process of trying to make it as easy and frictionless as possible. But what we've learned is that it does depend on where the audience is watching from. And it also matters, you know, basically, yeah, like what your set list is, what you're playing, and that sort of thing. So it can be tricky, especially depending on the platform. As Andrew mentioned, you know, if you're working on Zoom, they have nothing like this set out. So yeah, be careful.
Yeah, and just jumping off on that, from the classical music perspective, of course, everything is a cover. So I have had to be very careful as it relates to sync rights. We have done some live streaming on YouTube, which does have a much better system for managing this. But for anything else that we're doing, whether it's on live stream or Facebook, it has to be done manually. And by manual, I mean I have to talk to the publisher and negotiate a deal. Thankfully, I've generally found the classical publishers that we work with very understanding of the circumstances, and as Andrew mentioned, I think sometimes they come with some pretty ridiculous pricing at the outset, and then are happy to take what you tell them you have. But it is not an insubstantial amount of work, because, you know, as those of you who present classical music know, even figuring out who has the rights to something that's under copyright is a constantly moving target, and to get all of them to agree, if there's multiple publishers or estates involved, can take a lot of time to get folks on the same page. But you know, I'd rather do that than tell all of our artists that they have to play everything in the public domain. You know, that is more limiting to me. So I'm happy to do the extra legwork, but there is legwork to be done if you're playing stuff in copyright land.
Great. So this will be our last question here, unless anybody wants to sneak in one more. Mike Casey was asking, for ticketed live streams that are a revenue share, are venues or platforms willing to share the ticket buyers' emails with the artist post-show? Which is it's a good question, because I've had a lot of artists ask that question as well. And I'll let the speakers speak for themselves, but my guess is that it might be a case-by-case basis, but I don't know if anybody has any experience with that, with sharing emails from ticket buyers.
For us, that's an absolute no-go. That's in violation of CAN-SPAM laws, or at least my institution's interpretation of what CAN-SPAM means. If somebody gives us an email, we don't share it, full stop.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had a lot of pushback from people who use Eventbrite, for example, who get all the emails when they do events that way. And they're like, why aren't I getting all the emails? I'm like, well, there's a law that prevents you from sharing that. And even we don't use the emails. We have one transactional email that we can do after they buy a ticket. So we do a post-show blast, and we allow people to basically, you know, send their mailing list link and all that, whatever they want to say in the email, essentially. But we did just build something that allows people to check a box when they're buying a ticket, just that says, you know, I'd like to share my email address with Al Pacino, you know, like whoever it is. So it's a little more incentive when they see the artist name, and we have had a lot of good uptake on that, of people volunteering to share.
I definitely let Al Pacino send me an email.
Yeah. What's he doing these days?
Well, all right. I think that just about does it. I'm going to thank our guest speakers one last time. You guys were amazing today with your time, and I hope we provided a good platform for discussion for something which is admittedly in its infancy. So I would imagine if we did this a month from now, we'd have completely different things to talk about and a little bit more experience under our belts. Thanks again to all the attendees for registering, and thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.